Welcome to Home Economics at Quay. Today we'll be making a breakfast hash. So it's a nice, healthy, nutritious breakfast that you can use. We'll be having potatoes, onion, yellow pepper, could be red bell pepper too, or green bell pepper. We'll have some eggs, some cheese, and then I have herbs that we picked from the garden and salt and pepper. So let's go. So the first thing you'll always notice is you're going to wash your hands. You're going to make sure that your hair is up, that you're wearing your apron, and that you have no jewelry on. Now, you'll make sure that you have 2 russet potatoes, that they're nice and clean, so you make sure that you've rinsed them, which I have. Now what I want is I want to actually have my potatoes to be diced. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, first of all, slice my potatoes so they'll look almost like French fries, so we call that julienning. Making sure my fingers are away from the tips of the blade, right, so that our potatoes are like this thin, so we call that julienne, and we have a nice flat surface when we're cutting. We're using a French chef knife right here, so it's the knife that has a slight angle to the blade, but it has a straight edge. It's usually around 4 to 6 inches in length. And it's a really good chopping and dicing knife. Okay. So we'll use 2 russet potatoes, and I'm trying to dice it. It doesn't have to be a fine dice, it's more of a larger dice, because we're going to boil the potatoes for 5 minutes. So here I go. Making sure my fingers are away from the blade. I use a bear paw grip, which means that my fingertips are kind of curved inwards so that they're not in the line of the actual blade. And you always want to make sure your knife is a sharp knife, because a sharp knife is a safe knife as you put less pressure, and so there's less chance that you're actually going to cut yourself. So at this point, I can even grab all of these, and I'm going to grab on an angle. I'm going to dice like this. So now at this point, I have water that is boiling that I've put. I filled a sauce pot halfway with water, and I'm going to get pretty darn close to the water and gently drop those potatoes in. But this is what you will do on day 2 of your lab. But it'll be the first thing you do, so I'm just getting close. I don't want a big splash. There we go. And I can set a timer. So just give me 1 second. And I'm starting my 5-minute timer. And what I'd like to do is always when you put in your potatoes, you just want to give it a good turn. And so you will have, this is a 1/4 of an onion because it was a giant onion. So I didn't need, in the recipe it says 1/3 of an onion, but that's for like a smaller onion. So step with the onion, number 1, where the actual stems come out is where it grows up above the ground, because an onion grows under the ground, and the roots over here is what actually grows into the ground. So what you'll do is you're going to cut where the stem is. You'll cut that off, and I even just move it off my cutting board right away. That will make it that you can peel that first layer of the peel, because the peel is not edible. Nobody wants to eat the peel. So you're trying to take that first layer off. So we're going there. Okay. And that's pretty good. Now, I'm not going to actually cut it where, which I might take this first layer off as well, the second layer, because that's better. I'm not going to cut the root off right now, because the root, a sneaky nice little hack is if you leave the root attached, it holds the onion together, which allows you to cut it. So this one's for a dice, so I'm going to cut almost all the way to the actual root. There. But I leave it, so it's actually attached still, because then, so I went vertical, now I can go vertical this way, and it'll create a nice dice, which makes it so much easier if your job working in a restaurant is like cutting onions, which is a lot of the first job you do is prep. Now with the onion, you always want to make sure you're breathing through your mouth not your nose, because you can actually, it'll start to make you tear and cry up. You can always put an onion under cold water to help with that, the burning of the eyes. But really what I do is I go, okay, I'm just gonna move that onion away out of my actual cutting zone, and just make sure you don't touch your eyes. Don't put your face to your hands to your face. Don't touch your eyes, because that could actually really hurt and give you eye damage. Now you are going to get a bell pepper. It's going to be a quarter of a bell pepper, and you see these are actually quite large. This is a yellow bell pepper, and what you want to do is you want to seed it first. So right over here you'll have a whole bunch of seeds, and you're just going to pull the seeds out, and you can actually get the knife right there, and you can cut a little bit of the vein out. Now with a bell pepper you really don't have to worry about heat. A bell pepper has pretty much no heat in it. But if you're working with like a Scotch bonnet or a jalapeno pepper, they have so much heat, and actually where the most amount of heat is not in the meat of the pepper, it's actually the seeds and the vein. So always, again, make sure you never touch your hands to your face when you are cutting with, or sort of working with onions or peppers or anything like that. Now you see I'm going to make nice thin julienne strips. Right, they look like that. And see, some nice little bubbles. And then I'm going to dice it as well. So what I'm trying to do is just make sure that the potatoes, that the onions, and that the bell pepper are really nice and even size for cooking. Because we're pre-cooking the potatoes, it will actually be quite a fast recipe. So we got there. There we go. So I'm going to put my pepper. I can even just put that there. Is a cutting tool. So you always want to grate either over a bowl, or the most successful one with just a hand grater like this is to put your cheese on put your cutting board, the grater on the cutting board, and then you're always watching what you're doing and you're grating. So I'm going to take it. Be careful. Some of the worst injuries I've seen have been with a cheese grater. People kind of forget that it's a cutting tool, and they'll grate all the way almost down to their fingertips. So this will be a 80 mils of cheddar cheese, which is a 1/3 of a cup. There we go. And if you find it gets too small and you're a bit worried, no problem. You just can use your chef knife or a paring knife to just cut that remaining cheese into small little pieces. Okay, it will melt. There we go. Now I'm going to use this bowl for the eggs. So I want to beat the eggs. There we go. So I'm going to crack. So an egg, you're looking for the roundest bit of the egg. When we're going to be cracking it, I'm going to go right on the counter, and I can pour, like here, it's 2 eggs in the recipe. There we go. And when you work with eggs, you always want to wash your hands, because you can get campylobacter or salmonella. Heat oil in a large frying pan over medium-high heat. Okay, so I need 10 mils. So in order to do the 10 mils, I need my measuring spoon. So I will take a lovely custard cup. I will get my 10 mils, so 5. There we go, 5 mils. Plus 5 mils will give me my 10 mils. I'm going to make sure I have a wooden spoon, which I do over here. And I'm going to pour that oil. We can do the water balance test. So the water balance test is where I will get a tiny little bit of water. And I'm going to put it onto my actual frying pan. And when it evaporates, that tells me my pan is ready for the oil. Okay. As I'm waiting for that to heat up, I also am just going to use a fork to quickly whisk my eggs. Okay. Now yours will be like a 2-day lab. You're gonna have your peppers will be on a plate with the onions and the cheese, and you're gonna wrap it up. You'll do the eggs on day 2. You'll have the potatoes. We're just gonna have that, they will boil on day 2, but you're gonna have them in a container over the fridge overnight. But then it will all come together. So now, here we go. My water is evaporated from my pan, which means I'm ready. So I'm gonna add my oil right here. Okay. I'm gonna put my potatoes. And I got those cooking nicely. When you're working at an oven, you're always holding on to the handle of your frying pan. You want to choose an element that is the correct size for the pot. So this is a larger frying pan or pot. So I'm going to use the larger element, making sure that the handle is out of the way of traffic, and that I'm always, whoever's working at the oven, you always want to be holding on to the handle. Okay, you don't want to just stand and try to turn like this. It's actually unsafe when you're turning. Some of the pans are not as sturdy as this pan right here. So it says when potatoes are done, you're going to heat it up for medium-high heat, and then you're going to add your peppers, your onions, and you're going to cook that for another 3 to 4 minutes. So I'm going to add the yummy onions, and what I'm trying to do is caramelize the onions. So what we want is for the onions to almost turn clear. They say it's like they're translucent, and that is nice because that will there give a really nice sweetness to the onion. They're not bitter at all. An onion, I find if it's raw, it kind of has a bit of a spicy flavor. And if you'll notice, the different colors of the pepper, even if it like red would be really, really beautiful, it's going to add a lot of depth to it. And it's proven that if something looks better, that people have the impression that it actually tastes better. So it's always important to really think about the actual appearance of it, and when you're plating, how it looks. And now you always want to season with salt and pepper as well. So season with salt and pepper means that you just grab a little bit of pepper, you use your thumb and your index finger, and that you sprinkle it over. So that is seasoning. So you always season. You don't want to over season because it's very hard to actually save a recipe if you've over seasoned. So I'm going to get my thumb and my index. Okay. And with this recipe, I also said it's your opportunity to use some of the herbs from my garden. So I'm going to put a little bit of my fresh basil that we dried. Which was fantastic at the beginning of the year. And I'll grab a little bit of oregano. So it's a traditional kind of like Italian flavor combination. And then I'm actually just going to break the leaves of my oregano. They actually kind of were a lot more firm. All in all, it'll go into the pan and it'll all cook together for around 6 to 7 minutes. At this point, I'm actually just going to get a tasting spoon, and just to see how are the onions cooked, how is everything flavor-wise. Only use a tasting spoon once. You always use a separate spoon or fork when you're actually tasting something, as you don't want to cross-contaminate. So I'm going, oh, it needs a bit more time. I can say, oh, do you know what? Honestly, I personally would like a little bit more salt. There we go. Right? Salt enhances the flavors of all the ingredients that you're using. But you don't want to go crazy on salt, because afterwards, remember, you're working as a team, and maybe some people like it saltier than others, so you can always season after as well for additional flavor. Okay, so the color is getting really nice and golden, and at this point what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to push my potato, onion, and pepper mixture so there's a nice hole in the middle. So if you look right over here, that I'm actually going to go like that. I'm going to pour my egg mixture, and I'm basically making like a nice little scrambled egg because it is a breakfast hash. If you are allergic to egg or can't eat egg, I'm okay with you omitting the egg, but that's only if you have an allergy or if you are vegan. Okay, so vegetarians still do eat egg, but if you are vegan or you have an allergy to it, I will understand. And what I'm trying to do is just make a nice little scrambled egg. I always like to get the egg mostly cooked before I'm going to add the rest of the cheese. There we go. And now I can add the rest of the cheese. We'll let that all cook together. Mix it all together. And here you have a really simple breakfast hash. I will have either some sriracha sauce or salsa that you can add to your breakfast hash if you would like to jazz it up a bit. Okay, thank you so much. I hope you learned about knife skills, because that was pretty much the whole focus on this, and about recipe reading. If you have any questions, just let me know, but have a great day.